Hello and welcome to this episode of Kings of Garbage Time Football Podcast, where we help you sort through the garbage that is mainstream football analysis to become a better football fan, a more knowledgeable football fan, and a better fantasy football general manager. I am Zach Faria. I am here with Omar Rodriguez and Colton Watson. Gentlemen, how are you today?
Oh, I'm doing great.
All right. And so preseason football is back. All the great preseason hot takes are back. Everyone basing their entire fantasy football life on a few snaps in the third quarter of a preseason game against fourth string players. But that's where all the fun is. So for this episode, we're just going to start out with some fantasy football advice questions. Colton picks them up off of Reddit, and then Omar picks them up off of some fans of the podcast who wanted to remain anonymous. Omar, we're going to start with some of yours because yours are a little shorter. So I think we could get through those pretty quickly before we get to some of the more team building ones that Colton brought. So go ahead, read out the first one.
Yeah, so the first one, this one didn't have a name on it. However, the question was, who's your guys' number one handcuff? So I guess he's mainly meaning running back. So who would you guys have to pick here?
I'll go first since Colton's hearing these for the first time, and me and Omar were talking about them before he got on the podcast, so I have a little inside knowledge on them. It's a tough question. I think Gus Edwards maybe barely counts as a handcuff because he actually plays quite a bit. But if J.K. Dobbins were to go down, Gus Edwards is going to put up really big numbers. I also like Devontae Booker. Saquon Barkley's backup on the Giants. I believe Devontae Booker's on the Giants, right? Do I have that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. I think that's a good one. He played well for the Raiders last year in spurts. Wayne Gallman obviously stepped up as a handcuff for Saquon Barkley when he went down. I think Devontae Booker is a good handcuff to have on your roster if you're into the handcuff sort of thing. I'm not really, but it is what it is. Omar, do you have one?
Yeah, for sure. I think mine probably a tie between AJ Dillon and maybe Tony Pollard. However, I would have to say, personally, I would have to go with Tony Pollard just because in the games where he's played, because Zeke has been injured, he's been pretty consistent, dropping like good, like running back one numbers where I would be comfortable starting him at a flex position if, in those weeks where Zeke is injured. And AJ Green too, or not AJ Green, AJ Dillon. I'm more comfortable starting him this year too in the flex position now that Jamal Williams is gone. Jamal Williams was getting a good amount of snap percentage there, and he should be picking up some of his work. Maybe not all of it because he hasn't proven himself yet, but he should be still picking up some of his work. So that's who I would have to go with. What about you, Colton? What do you think?
You kind of stole my pick there. I was going to say Pollard is my number one, but like Zachary said, there's kind of like a level to where some of these guys maybe not even like just handcuffs, because you look at someone like Kareem Hunt, and Kareem Hunt, like he's a handcuff, sure, but like he has standalone value, and we saw him be an RB1 when Chubb was out, so it'd probably be my first, honestly, if I had to pick, like just excluding people that like kind of hybrid handcuff where they have standalone value. I think like Kareem Hunt is definitely number one, or should be number one for people. But then you look at guys like Madison, who's interesting. I know he didn't do much in Dalvin Cook's absence. And one of my top handcuffs that I actually held, and it's kind of paid off now, was Darrell Henderson, right? So I know we don't see him as a handcuff anymore because of what happened with Cam Akers, but like months ago, like this is literally what he was to any Akers owner or whoever wanted a piece of it. He was just a handcuff. So definitely like my investment of just keeping him paid off. I remember I bought him from, I think, Joseph before we drafted in 2020. And I kind of used that to leverage against Hunter. I was like, if you draft Cam Akers, I'm not giving you Darrell Henderson, so you're screwed. And then I think it backed him off from doing it. So he ended up picking J.K. Dobbins. So I ended up with his handcuff anyway, which is Gus Edwards. So it doesn't matter. But yeah, so I would say him, but he's kind of already paid off at this point. So just for that specific question, I guess Darrell Henderson, or if we're just kind of like ignoring the hybrid kind of guys. Kareem Hunt
Mhm.
should be people's number one.
And you know who's another one of those hybrid guys? At least I could see him potentially becoming one of those hybrid guys.
Hines.
Is him, also maybe Kenyon Drake now on the Raiders. I think his position there, we don't really know what they're gonna do with it. I've heard a lot of him lining up to do a lot of like routes. So who knows? Maybe
I feel
they
like
try
he's a
to.
better pass catcher, right, than
Yeah.
Jacobs. So I feel like he has a lot of standalone value just in the passing game there.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Let's see. So I got another question here.
Wait, hold on. I want to mention one more. Jamal
Yeah, go ahead.
Williams. I
Oh,
think with
There we
Swift's
go.
injury
That's a good one.
concerns, Jamal Williams seems like he'd be a pretty good handcuff.
I'd
but-
also like to say that Jamal Williams has a newfound respect for me just because he went out and said that he loves anime. That's respect.
Yeah, there we go. Jamal Williams is a hysterical dude. The video of him making two reporters play rock, paper, scissors to determine who asks him a question. He's great. He's great stuff. He's my mom's favorite player. So there's a fun fact for you on this podcast. Omar,
Alright.
hit us with the next one.
All right, this question will hit to Mr. Colton. All right, this one comes from Dalvin and the Chipmunks. Will Julio Jones do what DeAndre Hopkins did last year with the Cardinals?
I mean, obviously he's Julio, and Julio to me, prime Julio, like kind of owns prime Hopkins. And when we're looking at Julio, it's not really like, I think the concerns with Hopkins and even for Diggs was just like the moving to a new offense. But like with Julio, we have a whole nother concern where Julio wasn't bad last year. He was just injured. So I don't know. He's like, I think we mentioned him before on the podcast, but he's at the age where like they have injuries like this and it just continues. Cause like usually for these wide receivers, it's not that they get worse with age. It's just that their body doesn't hold up and they continually get injured. We saw that with guys like Calvin Johnson that decided to retire pretty early. And honestly, just like every wide receiver that has been elite at one point doesn't really just fall off. They just get injured a lot, like AJ Green for the past few years. I mean, it literally happened with all these guys. So he's at a pivotal moment to where like if he gets injured again, it's probably just going to continue to create a cycle of him just being perpetually injured. And it's not like he's been healthy throughout his career anyways. So it's a lot different from Hopkins' situation, in my opinion. But I think he definitely has a talent to be able to have a wide receiver one season. I know it's a little bit more difficult with AJ Brown there, but is AJ Brown that much better than Calvin Ridley? And I don't really see that he probably is, right? I mean, AJ Brown, in my opinion, is better, but he's like production wise and what he'd take up in the offense doesn't seem like it'd be more. And there's also concerns about Derrick Henry's rushing that could take away. So I kind of like, just to summarize my whole like ramble there, I think like it's definitely possible, but the injury concerns scare me.
Okay, yeah, for sure. I definitely understand and see where you're coming from with that. If I had to say, the only difference that I saw here with them is that I think that going into this offense here, it's a little different as opposed to like with the Cardinals. They have Kyler Murray, he's that rookie talent who kind of brings a different spice, than Tannehill does. So, that's also adds a little difference to that offense. But yeah, definitely I agree with what you were saying. So I got a question for Mr. Zachary now.
Oh, do I not get to answer that one?
If you want to add, you can add
No,
to it,
it's
but I got a
done.
question for you too.
It's been done.
Oh, well, my answer is just no. I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins right now is the best all-around wide receiver in the NFL. He went to a team that had basically no weapons. Julio's going to share with AJ Brown and Derrick Henry. There's no player close to AJ Brown and Derrick Henry's caliber on the Arizona Cardinals, aside from DeAndre Hopkins. And that's a big passing offense. That's Cliff Kingsbury's thing. Titans not so much. So I see it's along with the injury concerns, it's hard for me to see Julio replicating what DeAndre Hopkins did last year.
Okay. You know what? I like that take too. We'll see where this goes at the end of the season. So, all right, definitely. All right, Zach, then you get first pick at this question right here.
Awesome.
This one comes from Kaepernick's knees. Will Jalen Reagor be a sneaky pickup this year? What do you think?
No.
No. Okay.
I mean,
Give us why.
I don't really feel the need to elaborate on that. I think Rager was a terrible pick, obviously. He's not. I think Devontae Smith's going to immediately become the wide receiver one in Philadelphia. It is what it is. Jalen Hurts, not a prolific thrower of the football. Jalen Rager kind of going to be the odd man out, I think. And it just, from what I've seen in the preseason, he just doesn't sound like he's performing that well because he's just not that guy. So, sorry. I mean, if you can pick Jalen Rager up off the waiver wire, if your league is full of people like me, then like go for it, I guess. But no, it's not going to be worth it.
All right, Colton, what do you think?
I'm gonna go with yes, actually, because I'm pretty in tune with like Dynasty Twitter. So I know like the happenings, and Jalen Rager actually is getting a lot of buzz recently because he is having like somewhat of a good camp. It's more of just like splash plays from what I've seen. It's like a one-handed catch over a DB and stuff, and everyone loses their mind. So I don't know like consistently if he's been really good in camp. Honestly, I don't own him anymore, so I don't really care about what he does. So like I'm kind of biased towards that. And I know some of you guys are too, to where like if you don't own them, you don't really go into like actually researching them. But I do like him. I like his profile. I like what he can do once he gets the ball in his hands. I like his draft capital. Obviously, it's not very encouraging that they go out and draft a guy like Devonta Smith the next year, but I think Rager has a draft capital not to disappear, and you're not really drafting him to be like your wide receiver one. You're hoping he can like break into the wide receiver two category. And I think for the price, it's okay. It's an okay investment. I don't know with the recent hype, if he gets pushed up in drafts, if that's the case, then there's some guys who I like better, maybe at that range that he'd be pushed to. But I think for right now, it's okay for the price, really.
All right. Yeah. Well, same with this take. I think that I kind of like that you guys are a little bit different here, just because we'll get to see kind of really what he gets to do this year. Who wants to pick up the next question? Who wants to go first?
I mean, I can take it since Zachary took last.
Okay, for sure.
Go for it.
All right, this one comes from Mahone Depot. Who is your favorite sophomore pick to have the best season? Doesn't matter what position, just sophomore.
It would have been Cam Akers, but let me think here. I mean, there's a lot of good wide receivers. This is like a really strong wide receiver class that came out. Pretty much there's like 4 or 5 guys that could break into the wide receiver one category. So maybe one of them. I've been like looking at a lot of Chase Claypool. I don't even own him, but I've just been looking at his stuff, and he kind of intrigues me because they call him Mapletron, right? He has the body of like a Calvin Johnson type. And we saw what he could do in the red zone. If he gets more targets in between that area, then I think he could be a very good candidate to break out and maybe into wide receiver one category. I know with the Johnson and Juju there, it might be kind of tough, but I mean, I could definitely see him having the talent to do that. Then you guys got guys like Ayuk, Higgins, all these guys. But if I had to pick one, I'm really excited this is very biased, but I'm really excited to see DeAndre Swift with a higher snap share than like 30% and to see what he does. And I know like there's the Jamal Williams stuff and all this stuff about him being injured and everything, but I think when it comes down to it, he's going to be a really good back and have a really good year. So for me, DeAndre Swift.
All right. What about you, Zach?
I didn't want to pick an obvious one. Obviously, T. Higgins is the correct answer to this question because T. Higgins is the best sophomore player in the NFL. I didn't want to pick an obvious one. I didn't want to pick CeeDee Lamb. I didn't want to pick Justin Jefferson. So I'm looking through here. Some of the ones I think are really interesting. I think KJ Hamler could be poised for a really big year. Obviously, we saw Drew Lock connect with him on a big touchdown. Obviously, I'm on the Drew Lock train right now. I think KJ Hamler could actually be the biggest beneficiary of a big Drew Lock season. Another one, I think Henry Ruggs is a good chance to break out. I think he could finally take the role that Nelson Aguilar kept warm for the Raiders last year as the big deep threat. Among the running backs, I think Zach Moss, who I talked about on the last podcast, I think is a good one. And then, of course, I want to see what Jalen Hurts does as the quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously, I drafted him in our quarterback draft in the 3rd round. I'm big on Jalen Hurts. I think he's going to have a really good year, even if Jalen Rager is not going to be a part of that.
All right. Yeah. I like your answer. I like both your guys' answers, but obviously the correct answer here is Joe Burrow. So we can move on here. Yeah, I think I might have one more question. Let's see. Okay. Actually, no, we can move on to the Dynasty Advice if you guys wanted to move on to that segment.
All right. So both of you guys should have this so you could follow it along as I'm reading it, because obviously these people lay out their rosters because they want to know.
Entire team.
Yeah. So I'll only read the relevant players. But the first one is, should this team be blown up? Is there any reason to be optimistic about competing this year? If not, this dude wants to blow up the team. It's 12 team super flex PPR tight end premium. So just like our new tight end premium dynasty league. Deshaun Watson, Tom Brady, Daniel Jones, Carson Wentz, Derrick Henry, Chase Edmonds, Naheem Hines, David Johnson, Rashad Penny, Michael Thomas, Keenan Allen, Tyler Lockett, Cole Beasley, Christian Kirk, Sterling Shepard, Darren Waller, Kyle Pitts, Pat Freiermuth, and 2022 picks, 2 seconds, 2/3, and 4 fourths. So, Colton, in our Dynasty Superflex Tight End Premium League that we just started, you immediately launched into a rebuild. Do you think this team should be blown up? And can you give sort of the mindset of, if so, what he would be looking for? And if not, just explain why not.
He's like, I mean, he could go into the rebuild. He has resources. That's what you look for, right? When you look for a rebuilding, you want to see, does the team even have the resources to sell off to rebuild? Because like, there's certain teams that I know that don't even have resources to rebuild, but they went into it out of like, you never want to go into it out of necessity. You kind of want to choose. You want to be in a spot to where you can be like, oh, I can sell this guy and then go into rebuild, you know, like have stuff to actually like help the rebuild instead of just like throwing your like flag out in the wind and hoping that it sticks to a flagpole or something. Like you need something to like help. I know he wants to see if his team can actually compete. I mean, he has players here that I think like he definitely could make playoffs with. I mean, you look at his core. If Deshaun Watson plays, obviously that's a big help. But even if he doesn't, he could rotate off of guys like he has Tom Brady to start, and then you can rotate guys like Daniel Jones and Carson Wentz in. And then also he has Derrick Henry. And after Derrick Henry, it's kind of rough, but he only has to start 2 running backs. So he could kind of cycle in Edmonds, Hines, Johnson, Penny, all those guys that will have like certain weeks where they might get double-digit touches and in essence get double-digit points. So I'm looking at his team as well at wide receiver. He has Michael Thomas, who obviously is hurt, but coming back. He's got Keenan Allen, and he's got Tyler Lockett, who are both wide receiver ones last year. So definitely a really good core of players here. And then he's got Kyle Pitts, Everett, and he has Waller too. Like, and 2-point tight end premium, he could literally just start like Pitts, Everett, Waller, and probably get away with easily playoffs. And then you also like he even included his picks here, and he doesn't have any first, I don't believe. So I don't think he should blow it up yet. I think he should give it another year. It's not like any of his guys are too old besides Tom Brady, but realistically, what are people going to give you for Tom Brady at this point in Superflex? Would someone pay a first? I mean, if they're desperate enough, maybe like the best team in the league would do it. But like, honestly, you're not getting for the most part, you're not getting a first, right? So I just think that you should give it another year and see where it takes him.
Omar, what do you think? Do you agree?
Yeah, you know what? I think I would have to agree there too. Just coming, I guess, from my side where I chose to rebuild in our first Dynasty League. I guess he still has a lot of valuable assets to where, you know, if he loses a piece or two still to injuries, he still has like the assets to sell and start his foundation, like Colton was saying, for his rebuild. However, I think he could get away with doing something like maybe he could trade Deshaun Watson to maybe a team that's already in rebuild for something that could help him out. Maybe another like quarterback that he could sub in there. or just like a flexible piece. It looks like he's good at tight end, obviously. Maybe another running back. He could get like a running back 3 or something, and a pick or something for Watson. But I don't think he necessarily needs to blow his team up.
Yeah, and I'm gonna make it a unanimous decision. I hate blowing teams up. Obviously, we've only done one dynasty league up until this year. We're adding another one. I don't know if rebuilding is ever something I want to try and do. It's just not my thing. It takes too long, and I am too impatient. But looking at this team, Keenan Allen, Tyler Lockett, Darren Waller, already you have guys that you're going to be competing for years with those guys, especially Darren Waller and 2 tight end premium, like Colton said.
Kyle Pitts as well.
Yeah, Kyle Pitts, Pat Fryermuth, who I think could maybe get even a fast start this year. Cole Beasley, older guy, but he's going to put up solid numbers as long as he's in Buffalo. To me, I think maybe you look at moving Michael Thomas. I think this guy's pretty deep at wide receiver. I think if you could flip Michael Thomas for either a solid running back or another wide receiver, or maybe even a draft pick, I think that's what I would do. But this team could compete this year with Deshaun Watson, or with Tom Brady playing quarterback. Arguably, might be the last year he'd be able to compete with Tom Brady being quarterback. We don't know. But this team can compete this year. He can wait it out till Deshaun Watson comes back. And yeah, don't blow it up. And if I have any piece of advice, try and move Jacoby Brissett and pick up Drew Lock, just in case. Yeah, so there we go. Second one is a trade. This guy either is a Cowboys fan or he's trading with a Cowboys fan because he is wondering if he should give up Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb for Trey Lance, Cam Akers, Javonte Williams, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Darrell Henderson. 12-team Superflex. His team right now, Dak Prescott, Ryan Tannehill, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Alexander Madison, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams? Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, Mark Andrews, and Gronkowski. So, I mean, I don't know what 12-team league this is where this dude has all of these dudes. But yeah, I mean, take the trade. This feels obvious to me. What about you guys?
Well, personally, it's kind of tough because, Dak and Lamb are both really young, and they're going to be scoring, especially, you got that combo right there. That's going to get you that double touchdown. But you are getting a lot in return for them. You're getting a lot of depth there at the running back. Plus, Trey Lance is, he's not going to be starting, but he's definitely going to be the starter by the end of the season. So I don't know. I guess it looks like he's got solid running backs already as it is. I guess this just puts him in a position to where he doesn't have to worry about it. But I don't know. It's tough for me personally. I think if you wanted to stay competitive, you keep Dak and Lamb. But if you wanted to just, I guess, have a more reliable team, you take the trade.
And then
what say you?
Yeah, I understand Omar's POV. This is kind of a trade that I like doing where you take a lot of risk, but what he's losing in return doesn't hurt as much if you look at like just inside this year. And really, it's a bet on Lance, right? If Lance actually like is good and can at least be like a solid high-end QB2 entering into that QB1 range by next year, he's definitely winning this trade for me. I know Dak is a guy that like we all love now, but at the same time, you look at Lamb as well. Lamb on his team is kind of like an afterthought looking at his receivers. He's got Tyreek, Devontae Adams, and Stephon Diggs. Like with those receivers right there, you don't really need Lamb per se. And then you're looking at getting Juju back, who I'm not really a fan of Juju, but I think he's going to be 25 next year. So like, I think at this point he's still young enough and he's going to get a chance to go to a team and be their one. So I think,
and he was wide receiver 17 last year.
Yeah. Even me not liking him, he was still pretty good. So I think just like factoring
he's
that
got
in,
enough value where
he's
you
like
could trade him
decent
too.
Yes. So I think overall I would probably take the package.
Yep. So I believe we are unanimous on that question as well. Can we make it 3 for 3? I'm not even going to read this guy's roster because I don't even think it's that relevant to the question. Basically, he has a pretty loaded roster. The question is, should he give up DeAndre Swift, a 2022 first and a 2023 first for Christian McCaffrey? And to me, that is just such an obvious trade. Like, he should have just hammered accept before that trade was even put on the block. I mean, looking at his team, we didn't have to read it, but Josh Allen, Jonathan Taylor, he'll still have Josh Jacobs, Zach Moss, Tyreek Hill, DJ Moore, Justin Jefferson, Terry McLaurin, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle. I mean, those are going to be late firsts, and you're getting Christian McCaffrey back. It's a no-brainer to me. It's only half-point PPR, but still, Christian McCaffrey in full-point PPR put up 483 points in 2019. No one's even really come close to that. I believe the closest person was Dalvin Cook the same year, was 50 points behind. Even in half-point PPR, Christian McCaffrey is going to put up ridiculous points. Take the trade. You don't need those first. Take the trade. The only reason I personally could see to not take that trade would be if you think McCaffrey's injuries are going to keep popping up. I could understand that. But other than that, take the trade. Omar.
Yeah, I think I would have to agree with you there. I think I would just smash accept just because you already like his team here already is like really solid, and having Christian McCaffrey just makes him probably the best team in his league or like in the top two. Like there's not going to be many teams that can compete against this. So
Yeah, and then just to weigh in myself, I think like it's actually a lot tougher for me because I really like DeAndre Swift. But at the same time, like CMC is like really just that dude. And like Zachary was mentioning, like you look at the first given, I mean, ideally those are like 10, 11, 12 range. Even in 2023, which I love, it's still really to the point where if you really want to compete, I think you do the trade. And it's one QB as well. So it's not like the first are going to be more valuable because in one QB, it kind of it sprinkles in like three guys that normally don't get picked in the first because they're QBs and no one really cares about QBs in one QB for the most part. So it would just push the picks, to make it more valuable. But this is one QB and one QB running backs kind of are the most valuable for any position. And then you look at all his other stuff and he's in a position to compete. And like you look at the first, ideally those first, since they're late, are going to be receiver. You look at his receivers, he has Tyreek Hill, DJ Moore, Justin Jefferson, McLaurin, Ayuk, even Crowder, who's a solid wide receiver 3. Like it's really not like an issue that he's losing this. And I think he should do it. But it is a lot closer in my mind. And if his team wasn't as good, then maybe I'd lean another way.
I would agree with that assessment, but I mean, a team that loaded, Christian McCaffrey.
It's kind of like you have to.
Yeah.
At that point.
So as I'm watching the clock here on our Zoom timer, this one, again, I don't really think the roster is necessary. You guys can mention if you want, but the question is, should he give up Miles Sanders, T. Higgins in a 2022 second and get Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Brandon Ayuk in return? Omar, what do you think?
That's another really close one. Personally, man, it's really tough, man. It's really tough because I think I would have to go with just the safer bet here and probably go with the CH and Ayuk side. Just because I'm scared of Miles Sanders. He's one of my guys I'm kind of staying away from this year just because dynasty wise, you really don't know what the Eagles are doing like at all. So other than that, I really like T. Higgins though. So like that's the only bad thing in this trade because I think he's definitely somebody who we're going to be seeing in the future for many years to come. But the same goes with Ayuk. So it's, it goes both ways. So I guess I think the safer bet for me here, I guess just running back wise would be to go with the CEH side.
Colton, what say you?
So I think that's kind of where I land as well, maybe slightly preferring the CH side, but don't get it twisted. I really think that T. Higgins probably in my mind is pretty equal to Ayuk. I know Ayuk in general is really hyped right now. He's pushing up draft boards, and T. Higgins actually had a huge fall, and then now he's kind of going back up as a self-correction because people are realizing that, hey, this guy is still really good, and he's in his second year. Like, this guy could definitely still be the guy there. And Chase, not to like trash on Chase, but he hasn't like immediately shown that he's gonna like take over everything, which I don't blame him. I mean, he's probably really rusty coming in after not playing full year, and then he comes from that offense that like was really, really good. And then you go to the NFL, and not that the Bengals are trash, but I mean, it's the NFL now, right? So even the worst corners in college wouldn't compete with like what the NFL has to offer. Or I mean, the worst corners are the best corners, or like the worst corners. I meant to say, I got that little mixed up. So like even the trash players for NFL standards are really good, and really good anywhere else, especially in college. So I think in general, though, you look at CH compared to Miles Sanders, and you just give the tip to CH, because I'm also really down on Miles Sanders, just in general, even outside of this year. So I think I would give the 2022 second as just an extra like cushion to not have to have Miles Sanders. So I think if you look at it like that, I mean, CH side just wins by like a tiny bit, but the receivers are really close in my mind. So
Yeah, I think this mostly comes down to what do you think of Miles Sanders? Being me, I wouldn't want to part with T. Higgins because T. Higgins is an alpha, and he's also from my alma mater, obviously. 2022 second has good value. My last two 2020 second picks in our Dynasty League have been Josh Palmer and Antonio Gibson. So we'd obviously draft very early. But to me, I am a believer in Miles Sanders. He's only 24 years old. He got kind of a raw deal last year with the Eagles offensive line breaking down, with Carson Wentz sporadic play, and basically with just the entire Eagles franchise being a garbage fire falling down around him. I think it's going to be a much better year for him with the offensive line. And I really like Nick Sirianni and what he's going to be able to do for Miles Sanders, bringing that Indianapolis Colts mindset to that Eagles backfield. I think Miles Sanders is a very good player. I think he's going to have a big year. If this were me, I would not make that trade, just based on how much I believe in Miles Sanders, how much I believe in T. Higgins, and how much I like draft picks. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think, has gotten to the point where he's maybe a little undervalued by a lot of people. I think everyone was too hyped to jump on the train early, that they inflated his ADP, and now it's falling back down past where it should be. So that is a caveat here, I would add. But yeah, I think roll with Miles Sanders, roll with T. Higgins, and take someone amazing with that draft pick and take your chances. All right, so now we got to talk about probably the most exciting part of the football season so far, just because there's no football yet, is the preseason. So there's somewhat football. The rookie quarterbacks been getting a lot of buzz, obviously, because they're all getting their first NFL game action, even if it's not against starters for the most part. Colton, I'm going to throw it to you first with this question that I just prepared in my head just now during our break. Of the 5 rookie quarterbacks, I want you to rank them based on which one's going to get the most fantasy points total next season. Now, you have to remember with this that the number of starts that these guys get is going to be a factor.
yes.
So, fire away.
Is wise, Zachary. So when I'm looking at these QBs, I'm looking at who's getting a start right away. And I think there's a few guys that are getting that. Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones isn't, Trey Lance isn't, and Justin Fields isn't. I mean, surprisingly, I think Nagy's still holding strong. There's like, for like Trey Lance and like Justin Fields, we really don't know. The only one we know for sure that's starting right away as a vet is Cam Newton. So the other two guys, I mean, I'm just going to assume that they missed like a game or so. Actually, for the sake of this, I'm just going to assume that because Mac Jones would probably be last anyways on my like on my rankings. So I'm just gonna assume that they play right away, so it makes it easier. So I think first off, it also matters if it's 6-point TDs or not.
We'll do regular 4-point
Regular,
TD
okay.
scoring. Yeah.
Regular, I think I'd have to still give it to Trevor Lawrence first. I think he has the highest upside out of any of these guys. I know everyone's really like crazy about Lance, but Lance is very raw and he has rushing upside, but people kind of forget that Trevor Lawrence can run. I know like he did it quite a bit in college, but you look at him, he's so good as a pocket passer that you kind of forget that he can do everything. So
And he's built like a giraffe.
Mm-hmm. And he's built like a draft. So when he runs, it looks a little weird, but he actually has some wheels on him. So I think Trevor Lawrence should definitely be everyone's first, unless you're like a contrarian and you really like Lance. Because there's some people trying to argue that Trey Lance is a QB1 from this draft class, which I think is just way too crazy to tell at this point. I think just Trevor Lawrence's like prospect profile just blows Trey Lance's out of the water. So I would do Trevor Lawrence, and then for number 2, I would do Trey Lance. And I know that's kind of a thing of like Justin Fields or Trey Lance kind of arguments here. And I know Hunter actually preferred Justin Fields over Trey Lance, but I think personally, I'm going to bet on the upside. And how Zachary said that it's a regular standard 4-point passing touchdown league, I'm going to take the rushing upside from Trey Lance. I know Justin Fields can run a little bit, but I really like Trey Lance and what he can do. So I'll put Trey Lance as second. And third, I think given the format, it might be different. I might just be like a contrarian and say Zach Wilson over Justin Fields, but I think just given the format, I'll just give it to Justin Fields. And then Zach Wilson, who's more of a pocket passing kind of guy, is 4. And then obviously Mac Jones is 5. So that's kind of my list. And I feel pretty good about it.
Omar, before you go, I think I will jump in. I'm just double checking something here. Yeah, so I think Trevor Lawrence is kind of the easy number 1. He's going to be starting from the beginning of the season. He does have wheels. He's going to have rushing upside. I think that's a pretty easy pick. I also agree Mac Jones at 5, I think is a pretty easy pick. Cam Newton looks very sharp so far in both offseason workouts, offseason training camp practices, and in the preseason games. And obviously, I am on the Cam Newton train once again, so I have to put Mac Jones at 5. Sorry to Mac Jones. The interesting question comes with the other 3. And I know I have said I am not the biggest believer in Justin Fields. I do think he still probably finishes as QB2 among these rookies, just because I've had it in my head since the beginning that end of week 3 against the Cleveland Browns, the Bears are going to be losing that game. Justin Fields is going to get in, and he's going to be starting the next week against the Detroit Lions and their awful defense. I think that is the setup. I think that's the way it's going to go. So he's going to be playing most of the season. Zach Wilson's going to be playing all season. I'm going to lock him in as my 3 over Trey Lance just because I have no idea what the 49ers are doing. I don't know when Trey Lance is going to get an opportunity. Honestly, he might not get an opportunity unless Jimmy Garoppolo actually gets hurt. That's a distinct possibility. Garoppolo he's not a guy that I'm a fan of. As Omar knows, we call him Jimmy Garbaggio. But he is not a complete bum. He is a serviceable quarterback when he is healthy. Obviously, the Niners rode that all the way to the Super Bowl. Then Shanahan made the terrible mistake of trying to throw the ball with Jimmy Garoppolo in the Super Bowl, and that's why they lost. But he's a serviceable enough quarterback for the way the Niners are built that he's the safer option. And I just don't see him losing that job unless Trey Lance absolutely lights it up every day that there's not a game. And obviously his first preseason game was a little rough. So unless Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt, I don't even know if Trey Lance wins the starting job this year. It's just difficult to peg where to put him. But I think I'll put him at 4. I think maybe Garoppolo gets hurt near the end of the year. I think Trey Lance gets in some more starts than Mac Jones, just so I can keep Mac Jones at 5. Omar, what do you think?
All right. Buckle up, boys. So I'd like to say that I agree with you guys also on picks 1 and 5. One, obviously, we know Trevor Lawrence is just going to come in and just play good football, and he's got a whole team, I guess, built around him to kind of, I would say, succeed, I guess, to an extent. So he should play good and get good fantasy points. And then Mac Jones, I also think he is going to get fifth out of those rookie quarterbacks. However, I think I don't know. I think that we're going to be closer on him to number 4 than I think what you guys think. I think for whatever reason, Cam isn't going to be playing all year, and Mac Jones is going to be playing. I think Cam might go down from like an injury or something, and I can definitely see that happening. However, my number 2 guy, I'm going to have to agree with Colton. I'm going to say Trey Lance, just because I agree with you, Zach, on Jimmy Garoppolo being ass. And I think, you see, I don't care. Somebody fact check me if you're watching this, but I read somewhere that Jimmy Garoppolo hasn't completed a pass over like 76 yards or something like that. And I just saw Jalen Hurts throw one for like 79 yards. So that just goes to show you how bad Jimmy Garoppolo is. And I think that Trey Lance is definitely going to be playing most of the year. Number 3, though, I'm going to have to go with Zach Wilson. He's going to be playing every game as long as he stays healthy. And he's got a really nice team built around him, too. The Jets, I'm sorry to have to probably make Juan a little happy right now, but yeah, the Jets seem to be looking all right. Their wide receiver core looks nice. And then they have a good running back committee, and it's young, seems healthy now, and it has a lot of potential there too. So, he's set up to be doing good fantasy wise as well. And then that puts Justin Fields for me at number 4, which isn't, I guess, I don't know. I guess just because I think I liked him before, like when we were doing our rookie drafts, I did a lot of research, and I was kind of hoping maybe he'd fall to me or something. But yeah, I think that he's gonna have a really good year too. He's probably gonna end up playing a lot of it too, like Zach said. He'll probably end up being the starter by like week 4 or 5-ish. But I think that his numbers are gonna also be pretty close to Zach Wilson's, just because, like you guys said, he's got that upside. He can run also, so he's going to be getting those rushing touchdowns and stuff as well. So I think it's kind of cool that we were all different on our quarterback ranking. So it's going to be cool to be able to compare these at the end of the year. So we'll see.
Yeah, but it should be noted that the Jets are looking all right is one of the top 5 phrases said moments before disaster. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But Zach Wilson did look very sharp in his first preseason game.
Supposedly the best, right?
Hey,
Yeah,
Mac Jones is looking
arguably.
pretty good too.
Rookie
Mac
QB.
Jones also threw a lot of 4-yard passes in that first preseason game.
Mac Jones was
I haven't got a
slinging it,
chance.
though.
I haven't got a chance to see the
Last
second
preseason
preseason game. Yeah, I haven't got a chance to see it yet. I've only saw the stat line, which
Pretty
looked a lot better. I do agree. But Cam Newton was also slinging it in that game. So, I mean, shout out Jacoby Myers, by the way, who I think is going to be a very nice player this year in fantasy football.
Not shout out
Stevenson.
N'Keal Harry though. You guys saw him go down. Yeesh.
Yeah, N'Keal Harry. Hope he gets better, but
Definitely
on the field, yeah.
He's apparently having a decent camp too.
Wait,
I mean,
Colton, how did you pronounce that guy's first name?
I think it's Ramondre, right?
Ramondre, I believe that's how it's pronounced.
Okay, yeah, I definitely saw his highlights. He's definitely looks like a beast. So
Yeah, I own him and Damian Harris, so I'm just chilling whichever one.
But you don't own JJ Taylor, who also looks
You
really
don't
good.
Dude, he
own
just
Sony
had that
Michel.
one spin move, dude. That spin move, everyone went crazy. I think Ramondre has been like the best running back from this preseason. And I know that's not like a great accomplishment, but definitely something you want to see from a guy with like day 3 capital. So
All right. Does anyone else have any preseason takeaways to add here?
I'd like to add that the Eagles are kind of confusing. They really aren't showing much. They're really mixing in like everybody on their team. So I just like to say I don't like that the Eagles are playing with my emotions.
Well, Jalen Hurts missed the last preseason game with a stomach illness or something, I believe. But Quez Watkins looks really good and
Mhm.
is probably going to jump past Jalen Rager. Since we talked about Jalen Rager earlier in the podcast, I'd put Quez Watkins past him right now. But that's just me. So
Is Travis Fulgham going to be relevant again?
I have no idea. He was relevant for
Maybe.
one game. So, I mean, the Eagles, like you said, are a very confusing team. So if no one else has anything else to add, I need to address the elephant in the room, the thing everyone is asking about, Myles Gaskin. I understand that Malcolm Brown got all of the first team snaps for the Miami Dolphins in their first preseason game. I understand that Myles Gaskin not only got snaps with the second team, but got snaps with the second team late into the second quarter. I understand that everyone hates Myles Gaskin and was rooting for him to be replaced. And now they have their avatar of replacement in Malcolm Brown. But it needs to be said, Myles Gaskin is better at football in every way than Malcolm Brown. And if the Miami Dolphins really are going to roll with Malcolm Brown as their lead back, as their main running back, then I don't know what to do because Myles Gaskin is clearly more talented. The thinking that I had was maybe they wanted to get a look at what Malcolm Brown looked like with the ones, but they also wanted to get Myles Gaskin a lot of snaps. Maybe. I mean, that's the best justification I have. But looking at Malcolm Brown's stat line from that first game, 9 carries, 8 yards, stuffed on the goal line twice. I'm not even sure he's a better goal line back right now than Myles Gaskin, just because Myles Gaskin is just so much better in every other way. I think maybe Myles Gaskin's ADP right now, I think he was going like RB22 or so. Maybe that's a little high, but he is just so much better than Malcolm Brown. He's a better pass catcher. He's more explosive. He's a better runner. I fail to see how Malcolm Brown is going to replace Myles Gaskin. And I'm not going to overreact to the first preseason game of the year where they finally bring Malcolm Brown on the team and they want to see what he has. That's just me. Obviously, I'm a homer for Myles Gaskin, but I will live and die on the Myles Gaskin train. Do you guys have anything you want to add to that?
I will just, or if you want to go, Omar, because I
Yeah.
probably have a little bit of a different.
Okay. I was just gonna say that I definitely agree in that Myles Gaskin is the better back there. If the Dolphins wanted to do something successfully, I could see them doing something like a committee like the Packers, where the Aaron Jones and like the Jamal Williams type thing, where they have that like 2-1 punch thing going on there. Except I think Jamal Williams is obviously way better than Malcolm Brown there in that situation. I wouldn't be comfortable myself putting Malcolm Brown there, but I don't know. I think they could do something like that. What do you think, Colton?
I was just going to add in, this is my different take, and I think I told Zachary this too, is that I'm not concerned whatsoever about Malcolm Brown myself. Being a Rams fan, I've literally watched him play quite a few times. He's like, for some reason, he has this weird thing where week 1 of the regular season, he always gets like 20 to 30 points and like does nothing the rest of the season. So I don't know what that is about, but I do know like just in general, like he's not bad, but he doesn't do anything great or anything even good. He's just kind of average at everything. And he's more of like a reserve guy. He reminds me of a guy that like people forget he exists, and then the starter gets hurt, and then the backup to the starter gets hurt, and then Malcolm Brown's starting, and then he like has like a 30-point week, and everyone just loses their mind, and then the starter comes back and you forget about him. But I think the worry for me, if I was a Gaskin owner, is actually Salvon Ahmed, I think is his name. And he looks like a guy that is way more explosive than Malcolm Brown. I'm not going to say he's more explosive than Myles Gaskin because that's probably not true, but I think he's good enough to actually consistently get work. And if I were to worry about anyone in this backfield hurting Gaskin right now, it would be him and not Malcolm Brown. So we can just like view the season after this and kind of see where that take goes. But I feel pretty good about it right now, actually.
Yeah, Ahmed ran deeper into the game with more of the third and fourth string guys, but I do agree he's better than Malcolm Brown too. The thing I was saying the whole offseason when we were talking about the Dolphins should spend so much money to bring in Aaron Jones was that they could be just fine with a backfield duo of Myles Gaskin and Salvin Ahmed. The only concern there would be the injuries. I believe both guys went down at some point last season, but they looked fine. The Dolphins' problem was not the running backs; it's the offensive line and Tua's tentative quarterback play. So we are recording this on Friday night. The Dolphins play tomorrow against the Atlanta Falcons, so maybe that'll offer a little more clarity on this issue. But it needs to be said again, Malcolm Brown got all those first team snaps, 9 carries for 8 yards. His longest carry was for 6 yards, which seems fine for a big power back until you consider that means his other carries were 8 attempts for 2 yards. So I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. If the Dolphins are really going to roll with Malcolm Brown as the guy they're going to be giving 20-something touches a game, then I feel very confident about leaving them out of the playoffs like I did in our offseason picks. So, yeah. I believe that is all we have here. I'm just going through the preseason games to see if anything's interesting. Jameis Winston, I did see, is starting the Saints' next preseason game. Real quick hit. Who's the starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints this year? Who's the actual starter, not who you think should be the starter?
Jameis Winston.
Man, this is supposed to be a quick hit. This is hard, man. I don't know. They both are like have their upside, but they're both so garbage. It's just like no. Can I pick none of them next year? Like, I'm gonna say
you can pick Ian Book if you want.
I'm gonna say
quarterback
Taysom
out of
Hill.
Notre Dame.
I'm gonna say Taysom Hill. I think he's safer. I think when Winston starts throwing like 10 picks a game, they're gonna change their tune really quick and then play the safer option.
I do think Jameis starts the season. I do think that is an interesting question, though, if he finishes the season as the starting quarterback. I don't think Sean Payton would put up with a 30 interception season the way Bruce Arians and that Tampa Bay Buccaneers team did.
Definitely not. Jameis got LASIK.
This is true. Jameis can see now, apparently. So who knows what's going to happen. Another quick hit I had here. Indianapolis Colts. Does Carson Wentz start in the season opener? And if not, who does? Jacob Eason apparently is very sharp in camp. Both him and Ellinger looked good in the preseason game. I am a big fan of Sam Ellinger just from watching him play at Texas. He's a fullback playing quarterback, and I love it. But Jacob Eason does have a lot of natural arm talent. He appears to have the inside track for the backup job right now. I think Carson Wentz might get the start just because I think he's going to try and rush himself out there. I don't know if that's going to hold up for the whole season. I think Eason is actually going to get quite a few games in this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. That's why I had Eason already on my squad before Carson Wentz went down, because you know what? I've never been a big believer of Wentz. So I think that just having him play any game is going to be more than enough to have him on my bench, because I don't have the safest quarterback duo on that team. So.
And I like Ellinger. Obviously, I own him. I think what he was able to do in the preseason game after that interception really showed a lot of promise. And I think he's been having an equally as good camp as Eason. But like you guys mentioned, arm talent's really, really loved. And I think if Eason or if Ellinger had even like a tiny bit of the same arm talent, he'd be the starter, or I guess backup, but like, you know what I mean? Like starter while Wentz is out. But I guess it's Eason, unless Eason like messes up like completely in these next few games. I would expect Eason to be the main backup. As far as Carson Wentz starting, I haven't really looked into how he's coming along, but I heard that they expected him to be back by week 1. So I think in that position, Colts are like a playoff contender. So I'd assume they'd want to put their best guy out there, which at this point in time is Wentz. So yeah, I would expect them to start week 1, I'd think.
And their schedule is absolutely brutal to start the season. That is not something you want to throw Jacob Eason into the fire on. Let me pull it up real quick. They start with the Seattle Seahawks, the Los Angeles Rams. They travel to the Tennessee Titans, to the Miami Dolphins, to the Baltimore Ravens. Then a nice and easy game, a home game against the Texans. Then they've got the 49ers and the Titans again. That is absolutely brutal.
Yeah.
All right, final quick hit, just because we're talking about quarterback competitions, and I'm looking here through the schedule. Drew Lock started the first preseason game for the Broncos. Teddy Bridgewater gets to start the second one. I am already on the record that it is Drew Lock 2021 season. This is the year. But who do you guys think starts the season for the Broncos? And who do you think starts the most games for the Broncos?
Colton, I'll let you go first on this one if you want.
This is another tough one. No, they're
obvious-
equally as bad, but I
The
think
obvious answer is Aaron Rodgers in 2023.
yes. I would say probably Drew Lock. I know, like, we have the meme on the show of me thinking he's trash, which I still kind of do, but Teddy Bridgewater doesn't excite me. And I think at this point, they're both kind of bad, and the Broncos know that. So they're just like, well, let's throw out the younger guy and the guy who we see with more potential. And at this point, Drew Lock, he's not like fully like cemented as garbage. I think Teddy Bridgewater, he's not garbage, but he's just like so mediocre, and he's kind of older now at this point where it's like, where can Teddy Bridgewater even go at this point? He's not going to shoot up. I mean, his like ceiling at this point is like Sam Bradford, older Sam Bradford. Even then, that's like way too much to ask for, I think, from him. And you look at Drew Lock, and his upside is still up there if he can, put it together. I mean, he looked pretty good his rookie year. Last year, just really bad. But I mean, we've seen guys like Baker Mayfield have a good rookie year, bad sophomore year, and then a good third year. So I think someone like Drew Lock coming back for his second year, for his third year, right?
His third year, but basically his second year, I believe he's played 18
I know he's
games.
had injuries concerns. So I would say Drew Lock. I'm not a fan of both. I could definitely see them being trash this year and just drafting a guy, but if I had to bet money, it'd be on Drew Lock at this point.
Omar, make it unanimous.
No.
Oh,
I would like to say that I'm going to give you guys a hot take here and say that Teddy Bridgewater going to Denver, something about this oxygen being different over there is just going to bring him back to his New Orleans roots where he just won straight games when Drew Brees was hurt. Okay. And that's what's going to happen. And I think that we're going to just see Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Noah Font, all these guys just flourish. Just kidding. No, they're not going to do great, but they're going to do decent. I mean, if they were doing all right last year with all these no-name quarterbacks, and I mean, Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock, whoever they get is going to be better. But I think that Teddy Bridgewater will do a little better than Drew Lock.
I'm glad you eased up on that, because I was getting ready to declare that the worst take in the history of the podcast, which is pretty good, because I think I have a lot of them that could very well be there by the end of the season. But
if we go back through the tapes, we're all getting like, if Drew Lock ends up like becoming like a star, I'm just dead, I think. But
I will wear one of the filters. I believe there's a crown, and I believe there's a #1 medal. If Drew Lock falls out like I predicted, I'm going to flaunt the filters.
Yeah, and when Teddy Bridgewater is like a really, for whatever reason, good quarterback this upcoming year, I'll wear the deal with the glasses. So,
oh God,
and I'll wear nothing because apparently I can't put on filters. They're great. I love it. I'll look into that. But yeah.
All right. Well, another podcast in the books. I guess we'll just wait and see what goes on. I'm going to be watching the Dolphins tomorrow, just to see if all of the hype from the first preseason game was warranted. But I already know.
Make sure to watch for Jalen Waddle for me.
I will. And they're playing the Falcons, so we'll see if we see Kyle Pitts in that game.
Oh yeah.
But yeah,
he's a vet. They're gonna rest him.
Another podcast in the books. I should also declare that this is the first podcast where someone here is an undefeated football coach. That would be me. We won yesterday, 40-0. That was pretty great. Shout out to Hunter and Simon, who are also coaching on the team and are members of this
Coach
podcast.
Fish.
And Stephen Fishbow, our non-football, non-NFL friend.
He was in the league.
So another podcast in the books. You can subscribe here on the channel. Hit the subscribe button, which we'll put like right here, I believe. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Kings of GT. We'll see if the graphics get on the screen this time before the podcast cuts out. Simon, that's your job. Another podcast in the books. We'll see you guys next week.
Yep. We'll see you guys.